All right, welcome to This Week at Tassi, my weekly news roundup. You may guess what I'm about to start with today. I was going to do my own, full video on this, but I will try and do a condensed version here for the news roundup. This week, Bungie was accused of stealing a bunch of marathon artwork from a specific artist, Anti-Real. Anti-Real posted a string of images that they compared to Bungie images that they scraped from the closed alpha and all those surfaces. And they're just straight one-to-one rips of letters, text, symbols, a bunch of stuff. Like, it's not really even up for debate. So Bungie chimed in a few hours later saying that this was a former Bungie employee who did this, and then these made their way into texture files, and then they made their way into the game, and they were investigating. So not exactly open and shut here. This raises a ton of questions. It looks really bad. This is a horrible controversy, and it's inexcusable. This joins 3 other instances of Bungie stealing art in 4 years, 4 including this one. Those other ones for Destiny, lifting fan art for either, I think it was like cutscene scenes, and then there's one for an Ace of Spades Nerf gun. All of those were supposedly done by third-party contractors, whereas this one, in-house Bungie. So larger questions are here about like what's Bungie's process for vetting this, like who was this, how did this happen? But there are larger questions here besides these few pieces of art. It's that if you go into this person's catalog and gallery and their collection of work, you will find a large amount of things that if you did not tell me, I would have assumed they were early, like pre-development marathon concept art. It is an extremely similar vibe and aesthetic, right down to even the color palette. It is not exact, of course. These images are kind of more overly complicated instead of streamlined the way you would see in, a more stripped down version of something like Marathon. But the idea here is like, okay, well, if Bungie directly ripped stuff from this woman, like what else did they take? And there's some debate about whether you can, quote, steal an aesthetic, which you can't technically. Like, you can't steal an art style, but that doesn't mean it isn't pretty lame when you copy it. And I've had all these different people being like, oh, she didn't invent this art style. Like, there's all these other examples. And like, no, I'm not claiming that she invented this kind of art style, which is like very cyberpunk. But, you can throw, Akira, Neon Genesis, like, art and stuff at me. And sure, influence, absolutely. But like, there is nothing I've been shown that is as close together as the Marathon aesthetic and this gallery. And the additional wrinkle here is that a number of Bungie employees have been following Anti-Real for years. Anti-Real themselves said that Joseph Cross, the current art director for Marathon, has been following her for years, and they've not communicated. She hasn't communicated with anyone at Bungie. So the idea here is there is at least eyes on her work for all this time. Nothing, we can't prove a specific person did a specific thing, and that this was definitely like, oh, I see this person, let's take their whole thing. But that is certainly becoming the perception. And the overall kind of narrative here is that Marathon had a lot of problems, still has a lot of problems, but like the one thing everyone, sort of agreed it had going for it was this unique aesthetic, this unique art style. Like, it looked really cool. Like, I wish there could, if you don't like extraction shooters, I wish a game could exist in this world with an aesthetic that I actually wanted to play. Now that's very much tainted. And you're not really going to be able to talk about that and be like, well, Marathon's out. I really love this aesthetic. Everyone's going to bring up the plagiarism, which is confirmed. And then everyone's going to bring up, like, was this even, something they generated organically out of, like, these influence they say? Or did a huge chunk of this come from viewing this one person's portfolio? This person posted all this stuff in 2017, so this is not recent, and Marathon allegedly started development in 2018. We will also have to remember that good old Chris Barrett is the one who was working at Marathon in the beginning, and he did develop a lot of this aesthetic. So there's a lot of unanswered questions of like who did what, who saw what, and the only thing we can know for sure is that those assets were directly stolen. This is a big stain on a game that does not need a big stain right now. There's supposed to be a ride-along Q&A session in 3 hours that I have no idea if that's going to happen. this game was already facing tough headwinds for a while, but now if you can't even bring up its cool aesthetics without being like, did they take those from somewhere? What other stolen art is in the game? Like, that's a big problem. So I'll probably expand on this in a different video, but we will move on sort of in order of how this week went. This is a more funny story, sort of. Fortnite just put an AI Darth Vader in the game, in the island. And that does not mean like an AI NPC, like they have behaviors like we used to call game AI, like enemy AI. No, like AI, like generative AI. And in this case, it's using Google Gemini to respond to voice chat that players are speaking to it, and then it will generate responses in real time. And it's not just, Star Wars response. It is in like, you could tell they're probably going to be like, say this in the style of Darth Vader. And so like he's doing that. One issue is that, of course, people have already sort of cracked this. There was a really, really long list of banned terms and phrases and subject matters. Like you can't say, all this list of swear words. You can't talk about political views. You can't engage in like romantic conversations. You can't encourage violence. Like if you talk to Darth Vader about like depression and anxiety, he will like, this sounds like you should talk to a professional, like things like that. But some people have already gotten Darth Vader to swear. They said something about freaking fucking, like it's I don't remember. He was like repeating back something someone said to him, Loser Fruit, the streamer. I did see a clip where someone made him say a gay slur because they were talking about cigarettes and things, and I think where that's going. It's been a few hours, so Epic already says that they patched this and it won't happen again, and like, okay, but this also raises larger questions about the use of AI in video games and where things are going. Like, are you going to have NPCs with like 3 scripted responses and like a decision tree, or are you going to have AI you talk to and it just says whatever? So many complications with that. First and foremost, video game voice actors universally pretty much do not want to give up their voice rights to be fed into AI. The reason this Darth Vader thing is happening is because James Earl Jones did, in fact, sign over his voice rights to Disney before he died. And his family issued a statement about how, like, this is what he would have wanted. He wanted to spread Darth Vader as far as he could. And, like okay, but did he mean, like, put it in Fortnite and, like, have people, like, tell Darth Vader to blow him? Like, I don't know. That specific instance, if he gave permission, like, it is what it is. But the larger idea that video game voice actors could be replaced by AI, or replaced by AI of their own voices, or of actors who are willing to do it and they're not willing to do it. A lot of questions. I mean, gameplay questions, like how are you going to design narratives and quest designs when everyone you're talking to is like fully generative, and like so many questions. But this is sort of Vader AI doing swears is sort of the beginning of this. In less funny for Epic news, this is another Fortnite story. Apple, after, I don't know, 3 or 4 days of review, has denied Fortnite being able to come back to the App Store. This is after a 5-year-long lawsuit where Apple ultimately lost the idea that they can't ban people from directing consumers to other forms of payment outside of their app, outside of the App Store, meaning Apple would not get a 30% cut. This is exactly what Fortnite got themselves purposefully banned for in order to kick out this lawsuit in the first place, so Apple lost. Now, Apple has rejected Fortnite from the App Store for who knows what reasons. Either they are just very vengeful, which I would not rule out, or Tim Sweeney did something to like jab at them and make them try to stretch a little too far and like force this so they look even worse again. I don't know. But it does not look great. I also saw something about how Apple was like supposed to issue a thing. It's like a warning above games where it's like, or an info thing where it's like, hey, like this game uses third-party transactions, like just so you know. And then in practice, it's like this alert exclamation point, and it's like, this app does not use Apple's safe and authoritative payment system, and you will take you outside. And it's like, they're doing everything they possibly can to like get around these rulings. And is this going to launch another lawsuit if Fortnite is not allowed on again? and there's no good reason for it, I have no idea. Like, we don't actually know for sure why they were rejected yet. But it's just, this is like the funniest possible outcome for a 5-year-old lawsuit of like Fortnite getting kicked off at the beginning. 5 years later, all these court cases, Apple loses, and then they're still banned. So, all right, switching back to Sony live service. We have an update on Fairgames. Remember Fairgames, the heist live action cinematic trailer thing from, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago? I think it came out around the first marathon trailer. Really horrible likes to dislikes ratio, like Concord level. Everyone thought it looked bad. It is from Jade Raymond's Haven Studios. This game is being developed as a live service offering for Sony and PlayStation. And Jade Raymond just left the studio she founded. Great. This is the same Jade Raymond, I don't know why it's so hard to say, who was previously at Google and was in charge of making in-house Google Stadia games, of which she made 0. Before that, like, she got her start like way back in the like Assassin's Creed games. Like she was one of the, you know, progenitors of the Assassin's Creed franchise, which obviously is a huge thing now. And, you know, that made her seem like a really big up and coming star, and then she has just gone from place to place producing very little, if not nothing. It's not clear if this game is going to come out. I've said this for a while now. Something about this had to do with some sort of like internal tests that didn't go well. We have not seen anything from this game. This is like the first time we've heard about this game pretty much since like the trailer. One funny bit of the story is apparently they've dropped the $ from the name, and now it's just Fairgames with an S. I'm going to predict this dies. I predicted this was going to die already, and that's even before the studio head leaving and these rumors of it being bad. Another Sony miss. You know, we can talk about Marathon being a miss, but it's at least going to come out, and it's not going to be canceled now, even with art stealing and whatever. I don't think it's going to do well, but, you know, we'll circle back on that. So this is going to be another Sony live service miss. I don't care if it comes out. This is not going to be good. It's not going to do well. And then, yeah, Marathon remains their highest profile upcoming one, so that's not great. And then the final story here is Sony's one really good live service game that worked, which you may know is Helldivers 2. Ironically, not a PvP game. Helldivers 2 has done so well that Arrowhead has announced that its next game, which will be its 6th game, will be 100% self-funded and published. So this means they are no longer doing a deal with Sony, and this is the sort of deal that made Helldivers a PlayStation exclusive, in a Steam launch, and, you know, whatever revenue sharing they're doing with Sony right now. So they are going and doing their own thing. So Sony got a hit with the studio, not going to get another in-house hit with that studio because they're leaving. You know, Arrowhead did make it clear, like, this isn't anything Sony did. Like, Sony's been great to work with. Sony's a great partner. We could partner with them in the future. But, I mean, you know, if you have the capability, you're going to want to probably just do your own thing, make your own game, call your own shots. Like, that's sort of the dream. So, you know, can't blame them for doing that if they have the ability to, but, you know, not exactly a win for Sony. And this is 1 week of Sony live service stories in addition to all the other ones we've had. At what point do you just sort of like give this up and realize that, you know, oh, all you need is one Fortnite, but hey, if you get 0 Fortnites, you have lost a ton of money and development time, and you could have been using that on anything else. So the problem is, like, single player games are also really expensive and also necessarily don't justify their budgets, but like the sheer and utter failure of so many live service games is becoming just insane. Not even just across Sony, but, you know, how often do we see a big hit in this space? Like Marvel Rivals, like it happens so infrequently. It's like one game for every 25 you hear about. I don't know. So I don't really believe that this pursuit should continue to be, you know, driven forward at this pace. Sony may actually be slowing down a bit. I mean, you kind of have to be slowing down if you've canceled a bunch of games internally. And, you know, they are developing a lot of big single player games like Intergalactic and stuff like that. So that's still happening. But this idea, a lot of the people who are proposing this live service thing have kind of left or shifted priorities. But it's all bad news, really. And, you know, I can't. Outside of Helldivers, they had a really good new update. It really spiked player counts. Like, it is hard to see what's going to change about this. Bungie's working on Gummy Bears for them, which is allegedly a fun game. They've said internally, like people I know said they liked it. That is not a guarantee of anything, obviously. That is still many years away. It seems like there's this Horizon Zero Dawn multiplayer game. I don't know. I can't imagine that's going to be good. But and I've lost track of other projects because they're all canceled or they have not talked about them. So that's that. In terms of what I'm playing, I am probably just going to start a second playthrough of Expedition 33 on New Game Plus. I've just been like grinding out levels and Lumina points for fun, but now I'll probably switch to New Game Plus. I know Doom is supposed to be awesome. I just don't know if I'm in the headspace to like start Doom right now, and I'm not like reviewing it. I am having another kid in like a week or 2 weeks or somewhere in there, so I probably just prefer something more casual and chill, like replaying Expedition 33 when I have time, which I will have increasingly less time in the future. So that's just what I'm currently doing for the millionth time. Amazing game. Recommend it to everyone. I don't care if you don't like turn-based RPGs. I hate those. I love this. Anyway, I think I got a good amount crammed in there. Yeah, so thank you for watching. We will talk more about Marathon next week, no doubt. So I'll see you guys later. Take care.